Welcome to the Marketing Drip, where we drip tips to scale your business digitally. Abby here. The topic today is specifically for all my dentists and healthcare providers out there going through any type of transition. I talked with Cornell Kennedy, a lawyer at Sherrard, Rowe, Voigt, and Harbison law firm, and practices primarily in general corporate law and healthcare. So Cornell has been working with dentists and other healthcare providers on business matters related to practice startups with formation, operation and lease negotiations, complex practice acquisition and sales, buy-ins, operating and partnership agreements, covenants not to compete, forming and structuring DSOs, and really real estate sales and acquisitions and financing. So anything that has to do with your business, he's going to have you covered. So let's go ahead and start today's drip provided by Digital Resource, a full service digital marketing agency that is your resource for everything digital. Hey Cornell, thank you so much for joining us today and dripping some knowledge. I'm so excited to have you on.
Excited to be here.
Yay. So let's go ahead and just start talking about how you help dentists specifically, really different stages of their career, make sure that they're set up for success legally, right? So let's just start at the beginning of anybody's career. So if they're a new dentist starting out their practice, this obviously can be really overwhelming, right? What are tips that you generally give to new dentists when it comes to buying their practice?
So basically, I assume we're talking about doing a startup, right? Startup. Yeah.
Startup, yeah.
Yeah, startup. So yeah, I deal a lot of startups. Sorry. I would say the biggest advice that when I kind of sit down with prospective clients or even clients that have engaged me that are doing startups is it's not even legal advice, it's more consulting, but to have a really good team of professionals that they surround themselves with. And I think those should be dental specific professionals. And some of the ones that I kind of referred to them, at least initially, would be dental specific bankers, accountants, obviously attorneys, marketing folks like yourself. I mean, you name it, equipment, and the list goes on, brokers. And, it's highly important. And a lot of folks don't know that they're professionals that specifically cater to the dental industry. And so you want folks that not only can provide you that advice from a legal standpoint, but that know the industry, that could also, they've been in it for a while. They have the experience to provide you some dental consulting. And so I would say definitely surround yourself with that. I know some of my clients that, have done startups, they even go as far as before they even get to looking for a location, they'll sit down and go to lunch or dinner, drinks with 4 or 5 professionals, get them in a room together and just pick their brains for an hour, asking different questions. Hey, what should I be thinking about from a leasing standpoint? What does the market look like? What's available out there? When should I be hiring a marketing person? And so you're able to answer those questions. And the last one I just did, it was a dentist, and she brought a spouse along, and he was taking notes, and we all were engaged by her. And I know from a legal standpoint, though, specifically, it's really 2 things with a dental startup, at least initially, and that is which type of legal entity you need to form, because you do need to form a legal entity, whether it's just you by yourself to prevent that liability, and then 2. It's dealing with your commercial lease, because if you're doing a startup, you're probably going to have to go out. If you're working with a broker, they're going to find you a space. They're going to negotiate on your behalf, but that's all from a business standpoint. And so you're going to negotiate an LOI, the terms. Maybe you have some TI, tenant improvement, and then from there, once you agree on those sort of general basic terms, the landlord's going to say, "All right, do we have a deal?" And you're going to say, "Yeah." And so they're going to get all of that into your lease and say, sign here. And the what you need to be thinking about from a legal standpoint is, typically that lease is going to be 10 years. And so you effectively have a 10-year contract, whether you know it or not. And, especially if you have some options in there, it could even be as long as 15 to 20 years. And things are going to come up during that time that you need to make sure you have protection as a tenant, and have remedies in case issues come up. So really it's knowing that not only do you have to negotiate from a business standpoint, but you also have to negotiate and have somebody review that lease from a legal standpoint.
Mm. Yeah. How do you know the projection of your company or your business if you don't really know what you're locking yourself into? So making sure you have some kind of representation to understand, like, do you have a 10-year plan? Is it at this location? Are you set for changes that could happen or advancements that could happen? Or, I mean, 10 years, that gives me anxiety. Like 15, 20 years, a commitment? What?
Hmm.
No,
Hmm.
that's my own issues. But, just
And
making sure, yeah, for
yeah,
business, if you have that
right.
plan.
And the example that I always give is, what happens if the roof leaks?
Mm,
How are you remedied? Do you have a self help right? Maybe you've been contacting the landlord for months, and they haven't come to fix it, and it's causing issues with business. What happens if an adjacent tenant, his or her premises floods and it leaks into yours? And so you want to make sure those type of provisions are already laid out in the lease. And most of the time, the landlord's not going to address that, because most of the leases, the landlords are drafting them, and they're pretty landlord favorable and friendly. So,
right. Got to cater to both sides, but you can only cater to
hmm,
both sides it's like you want to write it for yourself almost, right? Like you want
yeah,
to make
yeah,
sure you're
yeah,
covered in both angles because you're
hmm,
very right. Those are being written for them. So
right. And you're
know
not going
what
to
you're
get it.
signing.
Yeah, and you're not going to get everything, but
Right.
I would say most leases are 95% landlord friendly, and all you're trying to do is just trying to get that as close to the middle as you possibly can. I mean, it's probably going to, in reality, be closer to 70-30, 60-40. But you're just trying to make sure you have some provisions in there that protect you in the event that issues come up.
And to your very point of making sure you have an expert panel of people or a board of people on your side that understand it's not just any business contract, right? It's a dental practice. What are
Hmm.
you getting in? And having that background and knowing that the clients that you're working with day in and day out, you
Hmm.
understand that industry, you understand what falls into. And same with any other expert that's a professional within the business. It's so much different in dental. Like, yes, there's a
Absolutely.
lot of similarities, but there's also, I mean, even understanding that you are an entrepreneur, you are a business owner,
Hmm.
and making sure that you pair up with people that are experts in their field so you can have partnerships with people and that you're taking care of and bringing those expertise and experience to play. It's not just if you have it's like if you have a mentor, if you're a dentist, you have a mentor and they're also a
Hmm.
dentist, they're going to give you clinical advice, right? Like they're
Right.
gonna,
Hmm.
and maybe I'm sure some business advice as well. But then if they have someone that they know that's a lawyer and, like you were saying, a banker, a marketing expert, like if you know CPA, if you know these people that only focus day in and out about that, you're
Absolutely.
going to be set for success. And
Hmm.
we're people, we're human. Like we
Yeah.
don't have the capability to have all of that now. And if we do, hey, that's all.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't.
Same.
Like things are evolving so rapidly in every single industry, especially in the digital age. Like you have
Hmm.
to have people that are on your side that are only focused and live and breathe that part of the
Hmm.
business to make sure you have the most successful business possible. That makes you a successful leader versus feeling like you failed because you don't know that. You're not supposed to know that. You're
Exactly.
supposed to pair up with people that do know that so you're
Hmm.
taken care of
Hmm. So
across
true.
the board. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I mean, that's a startup, right?
Hmm.
So that's making sure that people are, let's say you are a dentist that's buying a practice. So you're
Okay.
technically new, but you already have patients in your patient base. You're
Okay.
taking over a practice. What is some advice that you would give as far as buying an existing practice to be aware of?
Yes. So slightly different. I mean, there's some things that sort of overlap with the startup and with buying a practice, but there are some nuances to buying a practice. I would say the biggest thing that I've seen in my years doing this is just understanding, making sure the buyer understands timing, and what that looks like from start to finish of getting everything closed. Because a lot of times you get these buyers who are like, hey, they'll contact me and say, hey, I've got this deal, and we're going to try to close in 30 days. And for some deals that works. You can get everything done in 30 days, but for a lot of them, it's really not enough time, because you really need to make sure you are aware and appreciate everything that kind of comes along with it. Have you allotted yourself enough time to form your legal entity? have you allotted yourself enough time to make sure that that legal entity that you formed is credentialed properly, so that the day one after closing, you have already made sure that you're credentialed with all the insurance providers that you want to be credentialed with, instead of having to rely on the seller's NPI number for a couple of weeks, which can get tricky. So those are some things. Also with timing, I would say one that I just recently dealt with 2 weeks ago is, when do you notify employees? You'll sign
Mm.
this LOI, and then once you sign the LOI, you start, working through the documents, and the sellers, is his or her mind. They're like, all right, we've got a deal going. I'm ready to start notifying my employees that transition is about to happen. And a lot of times that's because, the seller's been working with these employees for years, and they don't want to, bring a surprise on them. And so they want to let them
Mhm.
know, as soon as possible. Whereas the buyer may say, I kind of want to let them know after closing, because I don't want it to get out, maybe that my employer knows that I'm leaving. Or
Right.
right. Or
Yeah.
it could just simply be that the buyer, and I've seen it happen before, is afraid that the employees are just going to leave immediately, even before
Mm.
the deal happens. And so, that can be a little tricky. So you just want to make sure that you really appreciate that. I would say also, probably even more so than any of that, though, is just making sure that you allot yourself enough time for due diligence. A lot of folks think, hey, I can do that in a week, but it really does take much more time than that. You need to make sure that, have you looked at to see if the seller has any liens on the assets, individually and on the practice. Those are some of the things that I check. Making sure we look at the UCCs. I know that's a big fancy acronym, but that's something that I would do, and make sure that you're protected. That Bank of America or U.S. Bank or any other lender doesn't have any liens on the assets. The other thing is, maybe sometimes the seller has a loan. And so if the seller has a loan, we want to make sure at closing that, let's say the purchase price is $1 million, but the seller has a $200,000 loan. We need to contact that third party lender and make sure at closing that we have satisfied everything, and that that loan is released, and we filed a
Mm.
financial statement. I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but those are things that you need to do ahead of time. So, at time of closing, we're not all like, oh my gosh, we're slowing up closing. Um, and then the biggest thing that I've run into in the last couple of years is, the seller is selling his or her practice, but they have a lease, and has the seller contacted
Mm.
his landlord where it can assign that lease over to the new buyer. And if so, have we filed the proper paperwork with the landlord to say, hey, here's what we need to do?
Uh,
Is the landlord going to charge a fee for that assignment? Who's paying for it? And is the landlord aware that we're closing on such and such date? And so you just need to make sure that you allot yourself enough time, and appreciate that, especially with due
mm.
diligence.
Oh, that's so interesting. I like how you say throwing a lot at you. Well, it's because there's a lot going on, right? Like, I think anything with buying, that it just shows that there's so many different parties involved, so many hands in the pot, so many different instances that could
Hmm.
happen. And you can control it as much as you can control it, but you have to know what you're doing, and you have to allot the time, be patient. Like, you
Absolutely.
can't just like set, like you said, 30 days. Like, you can't just put a date to it sometimes. Sometimes it's like, it is what it is, you know?
Because I mean, and understandably, like, a lot of buyers think, hey, we're just going to sign this contract, and then once I get my funding, we're closing the deal. But it's so much more than that, if you really want to be protected, and if you want to close
Yeah.
on time. And so you just have to appreciate that element of
And
timing
it's so true about
to get to the
team.
finish line.
I mean, you think of all the other parts of the business too. It's like, oh yeah, contractually, here we go. You own the business. But now, thinking of, there's so many emotional ties to that too, right? Like, there's people, especially these
Hmm.
practices that have been around for so long. If you're purchasing a practice that is established and has been a part of the community, or the team has been there forever, and making sure you're doing it right, and making sure they stay. A
Yeah.
big thing we do is patience, making sure they stay. Like, you just bought the
Hmm.
patient base. Most likely you bought it because you didn't want to be a scratch practice, right? You wanted to actually get into a practice that's already established. Don't let them run out the back door. Make sure
Hmm.
you're telling them properly, building the hype, getting excitement, instead of, people are scared of
Sure.
change. Like, they just don't want to be blindsided. But if you feel
Hmm.
like they're part of it. That's always great. But you also want to make sure, yeah, the deal is closed and you have the
Right.
building
Exactly. Properly.
and that you
Hmm.
can actually take over.
Everybody's
Yeah,
been
everybody's been
paid.
paid. Yeah. There's that other loans out there that you're like, oh, great. I owe all this
Yeah.
too. This is awesome.
Hmm.
I can't imagine. But again, it's just having those experts. Okay, cool. Scratch new, bot established. Now let's say I'm a dentist, I'm established, and now I want to expand my team. So I want to hire on an associate. What do I need to know? Do you like this like timeline?
Uh,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
evolving.
All things I deal with
Just
every
another day.
day.
Yeah.
I mean, this one's pretty straightforward. I think obviously you just need to make sure you have a valid, written, enforceable
Yeah.
agreement contract. Nothing oral, nothing that you've sort of piecemeal together. Maybe your former contract that you had when you were an
Download off
associate,
the
or
internet.
something you pulled off the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need to make sure that you have a valid agreement, because if it ever becomes contentious and you have to litigate over it, you as the employer, the judge is going to look at you unfavorably, because you're the one that drafted the document. And so you just want to make sure you have something that's valid. I would say, speak to your attorney, especially if they're dental specific, even before you get into heavy negotiations, because he or she can really, really help you with things you need to be thinking about on the front end. Like, one thing that I see a lot is a lot of my clients who are employers, they want to make their associates independent contractors,
Mm.
ICs, and so, because there's some benefits, as far as you don't have to deal with the headache a lot of times with taxes and withholdings and et cetera. But you need to make sure that, are they really identified and classified as an employee? Because what you don't want to happen is, let's say, you've labeled them as an IC, but they're really, really meet the employee test, because there's actually, under Tennessee law, there's an independent contractor test that you have to meet in order to
Mm.
qualify for that. So let's say you've had them for years as an IC, you get audited, and then the government's like, wait a minute, they're actually not technically an IC. They meet the employee
Oh.
test. And so things like that. Uh-huh. Other things that I kind of assist with is, who's paying for lab fees, who's paying for malpractice insurance. A big ticket item is always the non-compete. Contrary contrary to what a lot of associates believe, that and non-competes aren't enforceable, but they actually are enforceable in Tennessee. I know other states don't enforce them, but Tennessee actually does try to enforce them if they're reasonable. And so, you want to talk to your attorney to make sure, hey, am I going over and beyond what's considered to be reasonable, where this non-compete could actually hold up in court? Because that's going to be your biggest protection as an employer, is making sure that, there is some boundary, some radius that will protect you from that employee
Yeah.
competing.
I mean, that is your business partner. In some instances, there's so many different. Some people know they're hiring somebody on to build their resume and just keep them for that time being,
Mm-hmm.
and making sure you're protected after they leave, so they're not taking, like, now your competitor across the street. But then there's also a lot of times it's like you are hiring on your partner to either retire out and then they take over, or you're
Mm-hmm.
going to work simultaneously together. One wants to focus on more cosmetic or implant or full mouth, and the other person just wants to do bread and butter and restorative and handle that. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's I always think there's that, since it is a partnership or a relationship, it's like, oh, we're mutual, like, it's good, this is fine, we both agreed to it. It's like, yeah, but when it comes, you never know what's going to happen. And when it comes down, I mean, we were just in a pandemic, right? Like, who predicted something like that?
Right.
You just don't know what's going to happen. And making sure when something does happen, you're covered.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing, like, you should always overthink every situation when it comes to your business, and just make sure you're protected
Mm-hmm.
and that it's clear, whatever's stated. I feel like sometimes people communicate certain things, but you might see it one way and they might see it another.
Absolutely.
And unless it's like in a legal agreement, it's like, oh, this is what you meant.
Yeah.
Got it.
And the agreement will
like,
say
this
that.
is what we're doing.
A good agreement will say, we may have had some previous discussions, but what's in this agreement is what we have decided to agree to.
So sign here.
Yeah.
This is it. That makes total sense. Okay, now we've expanded to the associate.
Mm-hmm.
That associate's kicking butt. Now we need to advance into a new location.
Okay. Okay. Like a second location.
So yeah, if you have a second location, third location, if
Okay.
you want to expand to another office, but it's an extension of your practice in a sense,
Okay.
but it's a different. Um, so yeah, you're in Nashville. You now want to go out to Dixon, Tennessee. Then what should they be aware of when expanding?
Expanding. Yeah. So basically, you've got location one, and now you're ready to keep that location, but have buy another location or do another startup at a. Okay, got it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I would say. Well, first, congrats, because anytime you are opening up a second location, at least my clients, they're usually doing something right. So, and
It's
take
probably the marketing.
yeah,
I don't
the
know.
marketing. They're taking our advice
Yeah.
if they're doing
Yeah.
they're there. But
That's
yeah,
great.
no, I would say some of the things we've already talked about. You need to decide if you need to form a second entity. Uh, let's just say you've got location A, you listen to everything that we said, you form that entity, maybe it's a PLLC or it's a PC, professional corporation. And, should you take that entity and buy this second location or do the startup with that second location? Or should you go ahead and form a second location, a second entity for that second or third location? And classic attorney answer is it depends. And it depends on a lot of factors. It depends on your situation and, who's going to be working there, things like that. From my experience, it usually makes sense to set up a separate entity for liability and flexibility purposes. I know from a flexibility standpoint, it allows you to just be more flexible in that, let's say you bring associate on to location two, and that associate, you're like, man, she's knocking out of the park. She's crushing it. I'm ready to allow her to buy into the business.
Yeah.
Where you might not want her to buy into both practices. Maybe the revenue is a little bit different. And so things like that, or even same situation, but just maybe you're ready to sell. Maybe you want to sell one particular location, but not the other. Where if they're all under that same umbrella of one entity, then it gets a bit difficult to be able to sell. And so things like that. The other thing I would say, and this kind of, I'm gonna throw this one at you,
Yeah.
but is it time to start branding? Is it time to start marketing and thinking about now you've got multiple locations, or do you want to be under one name? Is it time to start trademarking? Maybe you need to register with the United States Patent and Trademark Office, things like that.
Yeah, and that's typically to your very point too, of just like it depends on the instance, right? Like it depends on, do you want to create a brand? Like, are you wanting to have the same name extended into different locations? Are you wanting to have a different footprint in each area? And
Mm-hmm.
that's all part of figuring out the name too, right? Like some practices, they name it after the doctor. Some name it based on the location. And that kind of bleeds into the domain. And our mutual client, True Dental, they're killing it right now. So they're going into all these different locations, and it was they have an amazing brand to be able to go into more areas. And what's nice about that is you can, let's say you have a patient that lives in a certain area but works in another, and you have a practice in both areas. Well, if they're all under the same brand, it's like, yeah, we're actually located in Chattanooga. If you want to be able to go over there, versus, whatever that may be, it kind of makes them feel like they're covered no matter what, and they can go to those different locations. But some people just want to buy out practices and have ownership and not necessarily the name or the same brand, and they want it to be different and unique to that area. So it's preference. I typically always say too, you're probably going to save more money if you stick to one brand, because that's one website. That's like with multiple locations, videos, you could, they're evergreen at that point. You can have them on one website versus you make a video for one brand, you got to do it for another. And same with logos, branding, those are all their own bundle if you do different ones for everyone. So if it's under the same umbrella, it's easier to control, but it depends.
And also a little bit more attractive when it comes time to sell to a DSO or anyone else. So
Exactly. And that's very attractive too when your name's not associated with it, because then it's like they don't have to start over. We always talk about like a website is your online real estate, right? Like you have your building that's actual, and then you have online, and part of your negotiation is that website. Like you can bundle that in. If they don't have to start a new website, they just have to swap out the owner and like the meet the team page and put the doctor on the page. That's way better than having to start a brand new website, brand new logo. It's a lot more enticing. So
Mm-hmm.
just say it, yeah.
And one follow up thing I would like to mention
Yeah.
too. I kind of hinted at it, but I talked about flexibility, but liability as well.
Mm.
So when I mentioned that, what I really mean is, let's just say you're being sued at location A for whatever.
Mm.
It's not automatically per se tied to the second location. Well, now they're bringing a lawsuit and they're touching all of your revenue from all
Oh
locations.
my
So
gosh.
being able to separate those LLCs or corporations can sometimes benefit you from a liability standpoint.
Oh my gosh, that makes total sense. Wow. And the fact that you talked about the associate too, that's so interesting because, yeah, if they're kicking butt at one location, you don't necessarily want them to have the assets to the other location when
Hmm.
they're, oh my gosh, that's
Yeah.
very
Well,
interesting.
and another good example is, let's just say the associate, let's just say location one is worth, you know, 3 million, and location two is worth, 500,000,
Yeah.
and the associate is trying to buy into the practice. Well, man, they might not be able to get a loan to buy 49% of the entire, structure.
Right.
But if you separate them out and you just want them at that one location, they're able to get a loan for that smaller location, if you will.
Oh, interesting. Look at all these loopholes. The biggest thing at the end of the day is being clear, being honest, like thinking through things. And I mean, I think we just keep going back to it, but it's so true. It's just having those partnerships that you have with people, with experts, and being able to discuss all your options and seeing which,
Hmm.
because at the end of the day, you're the business owner. It's your decision, like you get to make that
Absolutely.
choice, but making sure that you're covered and that you're thinking through every instance is crucial
Hmm.
to make sure you're taken care of.
Hmm.
But, ooh, okay. Yes, I love this. We've made it to the journey, right? But is there
Okay.
anything else that
Oh,
you would advise dental practices or just businesses as a whole? What would you tell them? What would you be your advice overall? Or things that you typically find are a miss, I guess.
yeah. Let's see. I would say just don't skip steps, cut corners.
Mm.
Basically the theme of what we've been talking about. There's a reason why you need a letter of intent. There's a reason why you need a very well written contract, whether it's an employment agreement or asset purchase agreement. A lease review, and there's a reason why you need a team of professionals around you. And if you feel that you are having to sort of cut corners and not pay certain professionals that you really need to save cost, then I always tell my prospective client, just wait 6 months, save a little bit more. It'll save you in the long run. You don't want a situation where you're trying to save 2 grand and it creates a $20,000 headache and that somebody's having to clean up.
Right.
And I truly do mean that. And I found that my clients who have taken that advice and really heeded to that, they've been successful. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, yeah, you start in the red in the beginning, but you made those right decisions, and it allows you to kind of grow much faster than some of those folks who are having to clean up and instead of focus on the clinical side, they're kind of having to put their hats in so many different other areas. So I would say don't skip steps. The other thing is, you mentioned the pandemic, and since the pandemic, federal, state, local laws and agencies. I mean, it's just rapidly changing. The
Mm-hmm.
environment is. I mean, I'm seeing it. It used to be where every few years there would be certain things that were changing that I would have to research and stay aware of. Now it seems like it's every couple of months.
Wow.
And so yeah. And so employers, especially during in 2020, and so employers really do need to make sure that they pay close attention to what they're required of and guidelines and the rules and regulations of the Tennessee Board Dentistry, and if not, make sure that they have attorneys who can keep them up to speed.
Yeah, those are two great points, and I'm so glad you said that because it is being paid. It's like as far as making sure that you're covered and making sure that you're not cutting corners. I totally resonate with that, right? Like there's a lot of decisions to be made. It can be overwhelming, but you could also be it's the same thing the doctors are telling their patients, right? Like, go to your hygiene appointments to avoid
Right.
a crown or a root canal down the road. If you're not, then it could, you might be cheap now or cutting corners now to actually pay a much bigger bill down the road, and it goes all
I've seen it happen.
ways. Yeah, same. And like, we see SEO packages that are like $200, and they're like, yeah, it's cheaper. It's like, yeah, but is it working? Like, are you just
Right.
throwing money at something that's not even
At the
working
wall.
just to check a box? Yeah. And same, are you downloading agreements from the internet and hoping that works when that could be so much? And I mean, that goes for anything, right? It's just, this is your business, do it right there, and just make sure you're talking with people to know your options. So if you are cutting corners, it's something that's worth risking versus not.
Yes.
And coming back to knowing your options, but 100% after, I feel like we're just in a new world with digital and with pandemic, just to show like things can happen so fast and rapidly. And since we're able to see that that's how it can be done, now it's like, oh, this is a new normal. Now we're changing. It's just instant. We need instant gratification, and we're able to change. I mean, I think of marketing too. Everything used to be print or like a billboard, right? There's a lot of work to change that. If you want to do that now, you want an ad to change, I just swap out the words and it's instantly updated. It's and that goes for any facet of any business. Everything's constantly changing, and that's why we have to have experts in every aspect of the business, because it's rapidly changing everywhere, and it's impossible to keep up with all that intel. It's impossible.
So true.
Well, good. This has been so fun. I thank you so much.
Thank you,
Cornell, for joining me and
thank you for having me.
Your brain. Of course, anytime.
Yes.
We'll do another one.
Yeah.
It's
I
always
hope it
fun.
was informative for everyone.
Absolutely.
Some great questions too. Great questions.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Every phase to make sure that we're talking through it, and we'll keep diving in. I want to do something where it's like we're in a group here in Nashville, and we all have different expert panels, and just kind of think of different ways we can talk about the businesses from all angles. I think that'd be fun too. But stay tuned, everybody. Boom, boom. But Cornell, thank you so much for talking with me today. And thank all of you for tuning in. Yes. If you want to learn more about your legal options and have Cornell and his team take care of you, go to SRVHlaw.com, or you can call and contact Cornell directly by giving him a call at 615-742-4557. You can also shoot him an email at ckennedy@srvhlaw.com. And that's included right here on the post, so you can click on it. So awesome. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Cornell.
Thank
you.